If you had told a kid in the 90s that one day he'd play a fighting game where Ryu and Ken would be versing Wolverine and Cyclops, well, his head probably would have just exploded. With that in mind, it's no surprise that X-Men vs Street Fighter was a monstrous success, with cabinets still littering bowling alleys and truck stops around the world. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the game, both how it came to be and how it influenced the rest of the fighting game genre. In the early 90s, Capcom was by far the most dominant presence in the market for fighting games. Following the release of Street Fighter II: The World Warrior, they pumped out fighters in huge quantities. Some were incremental updates to existing titles, like Street Fighter II Turbo or Super Street Fighter II. Others were entirely new games, like the fan-favourite Darkstalkers. Finally, they continued their clever use of licenses with some excellent fighting games featuring the Marvel comic book characters. X-Men Children of the Atom featured the incredibly popular X-Men characters, drawing in both comic book readers and fans of the brilliant cartoon series.
Let the hostages go, Pyro! This doesn't concern them!
Wrong, Ruby Eyes! In 2 days, it'll concern every human on Earth.
Wait till I get my claws on him! He'll be talking out the other side!
Oh god, not that one. This one. They also released Marvel superheroes soon after, and introduced characters like Iron Man, Captain America, and Spider-Man. These games were far more flashy and exuberant than games like Street Fighter, encouraging the use of bombastic super moves, lengthy combos, and fast, fluid movement systems. It might seem odd then to mix these comic book characters with the slightly more raw Street Fighter characters. However, the introduction of the more colourful Street Fighter Alpha series gave Capcom the bridge they needed to merge the franchises. Whereas the Ryu from Street Fighter II would look a little bit drab and serious compared to the X-Men, Alpha Ryu had enemy stylings which helped him and his colleagues fit right in. The special moves and super moves were also given a graphical makeover. Basically, everything had to be bigger, more colourful, and completely over the top. The character selection screen demonstrates how in tune Capcom was with the target market for the game. On the Capcom side, you had a lot of the mainstays covering all the different fighting styles. Grapplers had their Zangief, Charge players had Bison or Charlie, and Shoto players were well taken care of, as usual. Also of note was the inclusion of Cammy, which was her first true appearance in a fighting game since the beginning of the Alpha series. The mutants were similarly well represented, with obvious choices like Cyclops and Wolverine, joined by more niche characters like Gambit and Sabretooth. It was a careful blend of characters that gave equal access to popular personalities and contrasting playstyles. This leads us to the most important of the new gameplay features, the tag feature. Games like King of Fighters had done teams before, but they would only have a single character in play at a time for each side. X-Men vs Street Fighter gave people the opportunity to switch characters in the middle of a match, combine supers for screen-filling match changes, and more. This also meant that there was a lot of experimentation with teams. Players wanted to find pairs that would suit both their own playstyle and complement each other's abilities. This feature is the main gift that X-Men vs Street Fighter passed on. It reinvigorated the fighting genre that many felt was inevitably going to go stale. Matches were more exciting because they were faster and introduced more variables. Whereas previous fighting games would have tiers and bad matchups, the tag system mitigated these issues and gave players more flexibility in choosing their characters. The atmosphere also received an obvious boost, not just in the enhanced visual presentation that we discussed earlier, but in other areas too. The UI is bold, the music is punchy, and the announcer is contagious in his enthusiasm.
Charlie, win!
There is nothing that demonstrates his strengths better than the final battle with Apocalypse. This screen-filling boss constantly bellows at you as you attempt to avoid his devastating attacks. Again, his character is ripped directly from the X-Men cartoon, where Apocalypse was regarded as one of the most dangerous villains of all time. His insults remain suitably poetic.
Beast, how many peoples have dreamed of my end? You are no closer than the Babylonians with their swords and fire sticks. The game is over.
After defeating him, the character you're playing as is forced to defeat their tag partner before seeing the character's ending. There was a very different kind of final boss compared to the other fighting games, but the style fit the tone of the game perfectly and set the tone for all the Capcom crossovers to come. In fact, the whole game set the tone for future crossovers. Consider Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, released relatively recently and played competitively around the world. The graphics may be improved and the tag system updated, but the game's framework and mood still carry the echoes of X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Don't be fooled though. This game is still very fun to play, and more than capable of holding its own against its peers. X-Men vs. Street Fighter is a timeless classic that deserves to be remembered for more than its legacy alone. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Game Room. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. And now I'm going to leave you with the Game Room quote of the week.